So we are in Colossians chapter 1. And last verse we did, and I remember this because we sang a little bit of a song about the joy of the Lord is our strength. And so I know that we ended with that. Verse 11 says, strengthened with all might according to his glorious power, unto all patience and long suffering with joyfulness. All right, so the joy of the Lord is our strength. We're going to pick up from there and go a little ways, a few verses. And Mom, you want to start with verse 12?
Giving thanks unto the Father, which hath made us meet to be partakers of the inheritance of the saints in light.
All right, that's a verse there that could easily be read over quickly and moved to the next because it sounds like, wow, that's kind of nice. But as we do, we're gonna go through this just a little bit slower. Giving thanks unto the Father. I was thinking about Thanksgiving. Is it possible to be thankful if there's no recipient of your thanks?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I know that in our minds we went to, I can be thankful without telling Cliff I'm thankful, but and my thought was actually going back to a little farther back. Let me just say it this way. If there is no God, is there any thankfulness?
Oh, right. No.
If there is no God?
If there is no God, can you truly be thankful other than in other words, doesn't our thankfulness have to have a recipient?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you take God out of your life, or you choose not to believe in him, you can be thankful to people, but you can never go beyond just that thankfulness for what a person has done for you.
Mm-hmm.
And it opens up a whole different aspect to our spiritual well-being and really our emotions and our mental state. Thankfulness is so healthy to our well-being. In fact, in some place it talks about, it's in the Bible somewhere. I say that tongue-in-cheek, but I don't really know the reference. Anyway, for this is the will of God. Can you help me with this one? Concerning you, and that, and I'm missing the whole thing now, but it says that we should give thanks. The thankfulness is the will of God. And so thankfulness dispels so many bad things. You can't be depressed and be thankful at the same time. You can't speak evil and be thankful at the same time. Thankfulness, and how many start your prayer life in the morning if you're starting a prayer? Don't you start with that, that coming before him with thanksgiving? Psalms tells us, enter his courts with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. And so these are elemental things in our walks with God. And here it tells us to be thankful unto the Father, not to somebody else. I mean, we can be thankful, and that's a good thing. I worked with a man, and he gently and subtly basically taught me to say thank you. And I couldn't even tell you an example, but I remember that through his, not only his example, but his little corrections, he taught me to say thanks. And it may have gotten a little overboard because when I go through the drive-thru and they take my money at McDonald's, I tell them thank you. I don't know, is that necessary? I'm not sure. But thankfulness is an awesome thing. And that we can be thankful in all things to him because he is the ultimate source.
Right.
If I say thank you to Monty for something, I can keep that going on to God because Monty was able to do whatever he did because God allowed that to happen. So
Right.
the ultimate recipient of all thanks is to Him. And there it tells us that giving thanks unto the Father, which hath made us meet. Now we don't use that word in our not meet, to be partakers of the. Okay, meet. And I looked the word up. It means to be fitted. In other words, or shaped. He hath made us to be fitted. We are fit to be partakers of the inheritance of the saints in light. And so there's several things there. He says the Father hath made us to be partakers. Now, the word partake, what's that mean to anybody? Take part in. Yeah, to partake, be part of, partake. So Christianity or a walk with God is a participant sport. It's not a spectator sport.
Right.
The inheritance of God is given to people individually, not so that they can sit and watch.
Or where it says in another place, made a way.
Made a way?
He made a way for us to be.
Okay. So he makes a way for us to be participants.
Yeah.
Right.
Because we were alienated from him through sin.
Right.
Okay.
So he made a way for us.
Right. And that's going to come back, I think, as we read down through this, that it's going to come to the point where the blood is mentioned. And so that way is made by the blood of Christ. We're partakers. We take part in. That's I don't want to do comparisons too much here, but this is like a study like this. Everybody can be a participant. Whereas in a larger format, you're only a recipient of the teaching of somebody. But I've learned, even as I stand here, in this teacher. All right. That happens sometimes.
I thought if I had it turned over, it wouldn't do it.
There was this thing got in on my phone, what they call a virus. And I'm sitting there in church one day, and it come up with some rap song or something. I go, well, what's it doing? And I can't turn it off or nothing. I'm like, cell phones. So I forgot what we're participants, that we're not just listeners, but we also have input to give. And I'd rather be a participant than an observer. Maybe not in football. But, I mean, it hurts to play football. So I'm going to just watch that.
You learn more by participating than you do observing.
And what you just said is way true. Way true. It's kind of like if I'm the driver of a car and I go somewhere, I'll know how to get back to that spot. But if I'm a rider in that car, I'm not going to. I mean, it's possible that I can't remember. At least I can't remember as well. So when we're teaching or when we're participating, we learn so much more than if we're just listening or observing. And that's a real good point. Monday when the ladies take the ladies and they teach, the students are going to learn, but the teachers are going to learn. And I'm wanting to apologize because I haven't always given everybody the chance to do that so much. Okay, so a participant is someone who takes part in, and then it says of the inheritance. So what's inheritance?
It's what you get after someone passes away.
Okay, it's what you get when after someone passes away. And it's basically a lot given to you, not a lot as in a large quantity, but a lot, a specific, what? Portion. Yeah. I like the word portion. I think that is a word that can really help us to understand our walks with God.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that's been taught a lot, and I'm not going to go through all of that by any means. But in the inheritance is really, if you go back to yesterday's message, the inheritance is what's inside your envelope. Now I know there's an ultimate inheritance once we pass on into eternal life, but I want to walk. I hope you want to walk in this present life, also being in our inheritance. When God gave the promised land to Abraham, he said, wherever you walk, it's yours. These are your boundaries from the Mediterranean Sea to the Euphrates River. All of this belongs to you. And I don't know, did Abraham ever walk the whole length and breadth of his promised land? I don't know for sure. I'm wondering if maybe it was so big that he really could never get that done. And then how about us? Are we able to walk our entire inheritance? I don't know. I suspect that I'm going to miss bits and pieces at least, but I don't want to lose and miss out on a lot of things, or a big portion of it. I want it to be something that I can kind of fulfill. Paul, I think, understood that to a pretty good degree, and again, going back to yesterday, I have fought a good fight. What for? Just because I want to do spiritual warfare? No, I think he's referring to his course.
Right.
I have fought a good fight. I have finished my course. The course was the path that's laid out for Paul. And he said, I've finished it. What an awesome thing to be able to say, I've done this. And to hear the Lord's words, that well done, thou good and faithful servant. That's all about inheritance. And there's nothing in life more important or more fulfilling than to walk in the inheritance that God has given to you.
Right.
And it says that he is, how does it go with the word meet? He hath made us able, or he's made the way for us to be partakers, be actively involved of the inheritance, what he's portioned to us of the saints in light. Okay? Now, every word here we're going to look at a little bit other than the little ofs and these, but the inheritance of the saints. Every saint has an inheritance. And so often we put that, I think, in the terms of long-term eternities. And so we're just kind of going through life, and the only inheritance we see is that eternal inheritance, which is also, awesome. It's the ultimate inheritance. But in the meantime, we have portions and lots that God wants to give to us that he wants us to walk in. And to step out and to do those things is going to be the most fulfilling things that you can do in your life. It says of the saints. I don't think he just throws these words in there for the sake of fillers. The word saint means basically holy ones. Now, we may not want to consider ourselves holy in the sense of, I know that like the Catholic Church, they saint some people, but they never saint anybody until they're dead. And sometimes long after they're dead, that so-and-so became a saint. Well, my Bible doesn't teach that. It teaches you're a saint now, or you're never going to be a saint. And so he speaks of saints. So the aspect of being holy is something that we have to put into place. Not our holiness, not all the things that I can do to be good, but to walk in the fear of the Lord more than anything else, and to live circumspectly or wisely. And there's things we should and shouldn't do. And sometimes that's really focused on the things that we shouldn't do that are visible. But there's things that we shouldn't do that are invisible just as well. And so it's a whole process of submitting and consecrating ourselves unto God and say, here you are, Lord, use me. I have a portion, don't I? I have an inheritance, and so I'm just offering myself wholly and totally unto you. Then it says, saints in light. Light is the place where you can see. It's the place that you can walk. The Bible says that, Proverbs 4:18, I believe, the way of the wicked is as darkness, they know not at what they stumble. So we should be aware with spiritual eyes of the concepts that the Scripture's laying out here. And it takes light to do that. And we had a little discussion yesterday around the table about light and darkness, and somebody mentioned, doesn't the Jewish day begin at the sun setting? And we normally think of day starting when the sun comes up, but that culture sees it as when the sun goes down. And we discussed a little bit about how important we're saints in light. How did you get into light? The Bible goes on here, and we'll get to it here, maybe not today, but well, with that thought, let's go ahead, verse 2. You want to read that, Talia?
2?
Sorry, the second verse. We're going. No,
13.
verse 13. Yes, thank you. Colossians 1:13.
Who hath delivered us from the power of darkness, and hath translated us into the kingdom of his dear Son.
Okay, so we are saints in light because he has delivered us from the power of what? Darkness. And hath translated or changed us over into the kingdom of his dear Son. So the kingdom of his dear Son obviously is the kingdom of light. And then you have the kingdom of darkness. It's vital, and everybody has a place that they're at this particular time. It's vital for us to understand the unknowns in our life are darkness. And God always wants, in order for growth to take place, we have to start where we don't know and move to the light. In other words, we have to start in darkness and move to light. Because in darkness, and I realize darkness is wicked and evil, the powers of darkness being spoken of here, but if we don't know that we're lost, we can never be saved. If we don't know that we don't understand something, we can never have that understanding. If we don't know that we're in a mystery with questions, we'll never have the revelation to those questions. So the saints, in light, it means your sainthood, if we could term it that way. I never really say it that way, but our sainthood is determined on our ability to walk in light. And light can never come to until we start in darkness. God starts in darkness. And the evening and the morning were the first day. And he started in darkness on that first day, and he said, what? Let there be light. And so we transition from darkness to light. I guess I can say this, and I don't mean in the evil aspect, but in the sense of not knowing. It's okay not to know something. But it's not okay not to want to know. I want to grow into the light. So I can be in darkness, and if I recognize I'm in darkness, I'm better off than to think that I'm not in darkness.
Yeah.
because I'm the blind man that thinks he can see. So if I know that I'm in darkness, then I can seek for the light. If I'm in light, I've arrived. And Paul said, I've not attained yet. I press to the mark of the high calling of God. And so we have this need to recognize our place. How many are in darkness in some areas? Yeah, we all are. And our growth, I think I can say this truthfully, our growth is 100% dependent upon us moving from the area of darkness that we are at into an area of light that we're not at yet. And once we get there, we're going to go to another area that's darkness. So it's a continue until you know it all. And if you do, let me know. I have some questions for you. All right. So, who hath delivered us from the power of darkness and hath translated us into the kingdom of his dear Son. Now, Monty, go ahead and read this verse because it fits with what you said earlier.
We have redemption through his blood, even the forgiveness of sins.
Okay, so what is it? The element of transition is the blood of Christ. I am the what? Way, the truth, and the life, and no man cometh unto the Father but by me. And so he is the way. Okay, I was looking for a different word, but he's the translator. It's the blood of Christ. It's his offering. It's his. It is the path that he showed us, that he walked first, and then we walk after him. We follow him, and he moves from darkness into light. Tina, verse 15.
He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. That's
All right.
a good one.
He's the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of every creature. That's why Jesus said, he that hath seen me hath seen the Father, because Christ is the image of the invisible God, and he is the firstborn of every creature. Now,
I had someone tell me one time, all God you're ever going to see is in the man Christ Jesus.
okay, that's the visible, that's his manifestation to us. Otherwise, we know that the scripture teaches that God is invisible, but that invisible God took on humanity. Now we get to see him. He's the firstborn of every creature. Anybody want to go with that one? I mean, I have some thoughts, but
Before Abraham was, I am.
okay. Before Abraham was, I am.
Because he's the source of all life and living, like all seeds of creation came from his spoken word. So, like the firstborn of each creature, it would go back to the source. Right?
Okay.
The Word became flesh, and we beheld his glory as of the only begotten of the Father.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long has
Grace
that?
and truth
How long has that word been?
Forever.
from the beginning.
Okay, from the beginning.
In the beginning was the Word,
Okay, in the beginning was the Word.
and the Word was God.
The Word was God.
With God.
The Word was with God. The Word, yeah. So, being the firstborn of every creature doesn't refer to his birth in Bethlehem.
Refers to the Word.
It goes way back into eternity, doesn't it? That, I think about something. Has anybody ever invented anything?
Do what?
Invented anything?
Not me.
Probably. I mean, maybe not. But if we could think in terms of an inventor, what would an inventor? I'll use this example. My grandfather used to bring home a lot of junk from dump. That's in a different day and age, but you could do that then. Sometimes they bring bicycles, old bicycles, and there was a point in my life where I wanted a 10-speed, and anyway, he would bring home a bicycle. And, well, maybe that one, maybe that one. These are junk, okay? I didn't really want junk, but I got to thinking, and I had in my mind a bicycle that wasn't like a bicycle we normally ride on the pavement. I thought, what if we made a bicycle that could go in the dirt? Now, that's a good idea. That's a real good idea. Because you go down and you price one of those puppies today, and I mean, you can buy electric off-road bikes for $7,000. I go, wow. But you know, so it's one thing to have an idea, and I'll call that idea a concept. But see, the concept, I know it kind of got off the ground because I got my welder out and I took a couple of those bicycle frames and I remember lawnmower, you know, the old ones that did this, and I whacked those off and I stuck them on that bicycle and I welded them down, and then I had big fat tires on it, and it was a disaster. Had I known, I might have worked harder at it, but the thing I'm talking about though is this: you see that bike before it ever exists, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
That inventor has to see it. He doesn't know how it works, right? He doesn't know all the implications and all the gearings and all the brake systems. He just sees that bike and he sees what it's going to be capable of doing. That is the mind of God at work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but God says, it's, and I'm maybe relating it to human terms, God says, I'm not going to just be magical about this and go poof, there it is. He's going to bring that bike into existence by being very specific on how it's built. He's going to think of the parts. He's going to think of the gearings. He's going to think of the brake and the material that it's made of and all these details. See, all of that in order to bring something to pass that's only in our mind, all those details have to be figured out. That's kind of the hard part, but I think of the logos as that. The logos is the whole thing figured out. The concept is boom, just one thing. We can see it, but you can't get the concept into reality until you figure out how to do it. And I think that logos is really how it was going to be done. And we can see that in the word I'm speaking of, the word that was in the beginning. And so he begins to have that in his mind. And you know, God doesn't take a long time to figure all this out. He's God and he can do it quickly. But we see in the beginning, what was he known as? In the beginning, what? God created. So we're talking about a creator. And a creator is more than just someone with an idea. It's someone with an idea that goes past just the idea or the concept and said, this is how it's going to happen. And so the logos is, this is how it's going to happen. And that's why I believe that God has, in a sense, I sometimes hesitate to say it this way because it could be misconstrued, but I believe there's a, this is how it's going to happen for you and me. He sees you at the end, doesn't he? Mm-hmm. He sees the end from the beginning.
Yeah.
He sees the end result, but he has also the thing that's going to make it from where you're at to where he wants you to be. And so we all have that, not only a concept of where we're going to end up, but we have a pattern and a logos and a process that we are going to go through that will make us into what we ought to be. See, if I would have done that part, which is really the hard part, on the bicycle thing, I could be rich. Okay. that never happened. I wasn't disciplined. I was only probably 16 or something. So, but so now we see that he is the image of the invisible God, and he is the firstborn of every creature. Before anything ever comes into the world, it has to come by the Word.
Right.
The earth was without form and void, darkness upon the face of the deep. Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, and God said, "Let there be light." Now the Word's going forth. So before light came, we had the Word. Before the firmament came, we had the Word. Before the land separated from the waters, we had the Word. Before the sun and the moon and all of that were put in the skies, we had the Word. Before the plants and animals were brought to pass, we had the Word. And it is the Word that brings forth all these things. So he is the firstborn. What is it? The mind has the concept. The first thing that concept does is begins to lay out how it's going to happen.
Right.
That's Christ. And that's why it says in him was all the fullness. Everything was in him. And so when he became flesh, all of this was already in him, and he's going to bring to pass what God has in mind. Okay, the firstborn of every creature. If we understand that, we can understand that we're not accidental. And I know I say it a lot, but he has a distinct and specific outcome for our lives. But to bring that outcome to pass, he also has a distinct and specific plan for you to live, to come to this point. And that's the thing it is with all things. Christ, the Logos, the Word, is what brings forth every creature, you and me as well. Okay. I'm gonna stop there, because next time we're gonna probably back up and pick up a few of these verses and get a running start at the rest of this. But go ahead, yes.
I just wanted to share something. The Lord's been helping me to really appreciate him as being the one and only creator. Because if you think about it, man can only reproduce or design what's already been here, created by God, like all the materials, the elements, whatever. So there's absolutely no other creator but him, because nothing exists except he put it into existence.
Right.
So no matter what man tries to do scientifically or architecturally or engineering or whatever, we didn't come up with nothing. Because I mean it all, like what we're saying, it all goes back to him, because even our thoughts, I feel like the Lord inspires human beings to design or build or engineer certain things, but it all came back from him. Now, I mean, mankind can do, in science, sometimes they go to the not godly thing, they play around with stuff they shouldn't. But I mean, it just really, when I have my devotion time and think of, I'm like, you're just the one and only creator, because we can't come up with anything, because all the elements and material you've already created. So mankind we can't take credit for nothing. I mean, really, because it all comes from him. Any thought, any wisdom, he inspires it.
Right. And that's a real good point. We are created in the likeness of,
In the image.
and I'm thinking the image of God, well, likeness, image. We are created in his image, and the first image that we have is God as a creator. And I think that we have to take that as the fact that we are given creative abilities just like God did. Not in the sense of having supernatural power, but if you find somebody that is plagued, say for instance with depression. Depression is the allowance of your creative powers to be diminished to the point that you have no sense of accomplishment in your life. Our government's really good about taking the creative aspect of individuals from them and saying, we will do everything for you. Well, the laziness in us says, yeah, I like that. But you don't know the destructive power that has upon a person's life.
Right.
Where day after day after day you accomplish 0, 0, 0, 0, and all those zeros add up, and then next thing you know, you're expecting everybody to do everything for you, and you've lost that sense of what God made you to be. And so, some good thoughts there. Appreciate it. That's the great thing about being partakers and having an inheritance. We have something to look forward to, and we have a process to make that come to pass. Amen. All right, anybody else have any comments and stuff? And if you make a comment, I promise I won't follow up with another 10 minutes of anything. So if you're worried about that, I'll promise that. Okay. We love you all. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for living your inheritance and being partakers. We're looking forward to just a continued walk with God, and you being part of it is awesome. And love you all. Appreciate you. Amen. I think there's some leftovers today. If